The night was quiet in the small town of Pine Hill. The stars were shining above, and the forest stood still like it was holding its breath. But that silence broke with a sudden sharp sound in the sky. Ethan, a man in his early 30s, was walking home from his night shift at the gas station. He was tired, holding a paper cup of coffee, and thinking about how boring his life had become. But then he saw something strange in the sky. A flash of blue light, moving too fast to be a plane. He followed it with his eyes as it crashed deep into the forest. There was no explosion, but the light pulsed once and then went out. Curious and worried, Ethan dropped his coffee and ran toward the woods. As he got closer, he saw smoke rising. Between the trees, the air smelled like burning metal and something sweet like fruit. He moved carefully, his boots crunching on dry leaves. Then he saw it, a small round ship, half buried in the dirt, glowing faintly. It looked smooth, silver, and alive somehow. And in front of it lay something even more shocking, a child. The child had pale blue skin and large dark eyes that shimmered like water. It wore a small silver suit and held something close to its chest, a glowing cube. The child was shaking, breathing fast, eyes full of fear. Ethan froze, unsure what to do. The child looked up at him and whispered in a weak voice, "You're human." Ethan slowly nodded, not sure what else to say. The child reached out a tiny hand and held onto his jacket. Then, with a deep breath, it said something that made Ethan's heart stop. "You're perfect for my mom," the child said. "If you're single, would you marry her?" Ethan blinked, thinking he had misheard. "Wait, what?" he asked, kneeling beside the child. "Who are you? Are you hurt?" The child's eyes fluttered, and it spoke again, softer this time. "They're coming. But ones. They'll take her. They'll kill her. You must help." And then the child passed out. Ethan caught the small body before it hit the ground. It was surprisingly light, like holding a bunch of feathers. He looked around. The crash had been quiet, but what if someone else saw it? What if those bad ones were real? He didn't know what this was, but he knew he couldn't leave the child here. So he picked up the child and the glowing cube and carried them back to his truck. As he drove toward his cabin on the edge of town, his hands shook on the steering wheel. "Okay, Ethan," he said to himself. "This is not a normal night." When they reached the cabin, he laid the child on the couch and covered it with a blanket. The glowing cube floated out of his hands and hovered in the air. Spinning slowly, Ethan stared at it, confused and amazed. Then something strange happened. The cube flashed, and a small image appeared in the air. A hologram. It showed a tall, alien woman with glowing eyes, long silver hair, and a serious face. She looked powerful, but also gentle. "This is my mom," the child's voice echoed from the cube. "Even though the child was still unconscious, she is strong. But alone, she needs someone brave, someone kind. Someone like you." Ethan sat back, completely stunned. "What is this?" he whispered. He didn't believe in aliens before tonight, but now an alien child was asleep in his house, asking him to marry its mom, and people or things were coming to kill her. Just then, the lights in the cabin flickered. Outside, a strange humming sound grew louder, like a machine searching for something. Ethan ran to the window and peeked out. A dark shape floated above the trees. It wasn't a plane or a drone. It looked like a black jellyfish made of metal, slowly scanning the area. He turned off the lights and crouched next to the couch, heart pounding. The child stirred in its sleep and whispered one more time, "Please, protect her." Ethan looked at the child, then at the strange ship outside. He didn't know what was happening, but one thing was clear. This child had chosen him, and something much bigger was coming. The cabin was silent, but the air felt heavy outside. The dark alien ship floated above the trees like a predator. Its surface shimmered with black liquid metal, and it made no sound, only a low hum that seemed to vibrate inside Ethan's bones. He didn't move. He kept the lights off and held a fire poker in one hand, useless but comforting. His other hand rested on the alien child's shoulder, which was now warm, too warm, like a fever. Then, the cube in the air spun faster. The hologram of the alien woman returned. She looked hurt, her eyes flickered, and her voice was shaky. "They found us," she said. "Protect my son. I'm trying to reach Earth." And then the image vanished. The cube fell to the floor and stopped glowing. Ethan swallowed hard. The humming outside grew louder. Then a bright red light swept across the front of the cabin. A scan beam. Ethan ducked down, pulling the child with him behind the couch. The beam paused on the front door. A moment later, something knocked softly, like it was just testing. Then the doorknob began to turn. Ethan's heart pounded. He had locked the door, but he knew that wouldn't stop whatever was outside. Suddenly, the child opened its eyes and whispered, "Behind the wall." "What?" Ethan whispered back, confused. The child pointed toward the fireplace. Ethan ran to it, pushed against the bricks, and to his shock, a panel opened. Inside was a narrow space, big enough to crawl through. He grabbed the child and slipped inside. Just as the front door burst open, from the shadows Ethan saw a tall, thin creature step into the cabin. Its skin was dark blue, almost black, and its eyes glowed white. It didn't speak, but it moved with purpose, scanning the room. Ethan held his breath as the creature walked past the couch. Then the cube on the floor sparked, and the creature snapped its head toward it with a sudden motion. It picked it up and made a clicking sound, like it was calling others. Ethan watched in horror as a second creature entered, this one, taller and with blades on its arms. They began tearing the place apart. Looking for the child, Ethan backed deeper into the hidden tunnel, crawling with the child in his arms. They reached the end, an old trapdoor that led out to the woods. Ethan kicked it open and slipped outside into the cold night. The moment they were out, the trapdoor sealed itself again. Ethan didn't stop to think how. He just ran. The child clung to him and whispered, "They are hunters. My mother escaped them. They want her and me, and now you." Ethan stopped behind a fallen log, breathing hard. "What do they want with me?" he asked, still whispering. The child looked up at him, eyes glowing faintly. "Because you're the key. I saw it." "What key?" "I'm just a gas station worker," Ethan said, confused and scared. "No," the child said. "You're more than that. You were chosen." Before Ethan could ask more, a light in the sky moved fast above them. Another ship, smaller this time, flew over the trees. Scanning, then it stopped and hovered in the air. Suddenly the child pressed a button on its wrist device. A pulse shot out, and the ship above flickered and turned invisible. "What did you do?" Ethan asked. "Blocked their signal," the child said. "But only for 1 hour. We must move." They traveled through the dark forest, avoiding every sound. Ethan didn't know where they were going. He just followed the child's directions. They reached an old bunker from World War II, hidden under a hill. Ethan had found it years ago while hiking, never thinking it would be useful someday. The door creaked open, and they went inside. It was cold, damp, and smelled like rust, but it was safe for now. Ethan sat down on the floor, exhausted, and looked at the child. "What's your name?" he asked. The child paused, then said, "You can call me Leo." "And your mother?" Ethan asked. "Where is she?" "She's coming," Leo said, "but she needs time. You must help her when she arrives." Ethan rubbed his face, trying to think. "This is insane," he said. "Why me?" Leo crawled closer, took his hand, and looked into his eyes. "Because in our world, there's a legend," he said. "A man from Earth who would protect the lost queen. Someone with a human heart and a warrior's soul." Ethan laughed nervously. "I think you picked the wrong guy," Leo smiled softly. "I don't think so." Suddenly, a beep came from Leo's device. He looked up with wide eyes. "She's near," he whispered. "My mom is landing on Earth." Ethan stood up quickly. "Where?" he asked. Before Leo could answer, the ground shook, and a distant explosion echoed through the forest. The night sky outside turned bright blue for a second. Leo whispered, "Too late." They found her first. The sky had turned blue, not like morning, but like lightning had frozen in place. Ethan stood at the entrance of the bunker, eyes wide as the light faded. The forest was quiet again, but it wasn't the peaceful kind of silence, it was the kind before a storm. Leo climbed beside him, his small hands shaking. "She's here," he said, voice trembling. "But something is wrong." Ethan grabbed his backpack, stuffed it with a flashlight, food bars, and an old baseball bat he had. No idea what he was doing, but he knew they couldn't just sit there and wait. "Show me," he said. "Where did she land?" Leo pressed his wrist device, and a soft map appeared in the air. A blinking red dot pulsed on the other side of the forest, near the abandoned quarry. "That's where we have to go," Leo said. Before they reach her first, they ran, avoiding the trails, cutting through trees and thorns. Ethan's lungs burned, and his legs felt like iron, but he didn't stop. Leo's glowing eyes guided the way, and the strange cube followed silently behind them as they neared the quarry. They smelled smoke. Not wood smoke, something sharp and electric. The ground was still warm. The rocks cracked open like an invisible blade had sliced through them. And then Ethan saw it. A silver pod-shaped ship, stuck in the side of the cliff, steaming. It looked damaged, but not destroyed. They moved closer, but stopped behind a fallen boulder. A group of black-armored hunters stood near the ship, their long arms holding scanning rods. Ethan counted 5 of them, all moving like insects. Quick and quiet, suddenly, the ship's door opened. A tall figure stepped out, graceful but powerful. She wore a silver cloak, her skin shimmering like stars under moonlight. Her eyes glowed golden, and her long white hair floated around her. As if in slow motion, Leo gasped, "Mom!" Ethan felt like the world had stopped moving. The woman didn't look human, but she didn't look alien either. She looked royal, like she belonged to something far beyond Earth. But the moment she stepped out, the hunters turned toward her. They raised their weapons. Red beams lit up the night. "No!" Leo cried, jumping up from the boulder. Ethan grabbed him. But it was too late. The child ran forward. The queen turned at the sound of Leo's voice. Her eyes widened in shock and fear. Then she raised her hand, and everything changed. The wind roared, and a wave of invisible force exploded outward. The hunters flew backwards, crashing into rocks and trees. The earth trembled, and the silver ship pulsed with light. Ethan ran after Leo, ducking behind the ship. The queen knelt and wrapped her arms around her child. She looked up at Ethan as he approached, her eyes scanning him like she already knew him. "You brought him here," she said softly. "You protected him." Ethan didn't know what to say. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The queen stood, her presence almost too bright to look at. "I am Serana," she said, "Queen of Illyrius. And your world is now in danger." Before Ethan could respond, a blast hit the side of the ship. One of the hunters had recovered. He fired again, but this time Ethan stepped in front of Leo and swung the bat. The metal beam deflected off. The bat like it had hit solid steel. Everyone froze, including Ethan. The bat in his hands glowed briefly, then faded. The queen's eyes narrowed. "It's true," she whispered. "The weapon chose you." Ethan blinked. "What weapon?" Serana pointed to the bat. "That is not a bat anymore," she said. "It's a relic. A dormant piece of the core." Ethan looked down. The bat no longer looked like wood. It had turned silver, smooth, and humming quietly. He held it tighter, confused and amazed. More hunters appeared at the cliff above them. Serana pulled Leo behind her, and Ethan stepped beside them. "You are part of this now," she said to him. "Not just because of Leo, but because the core responds to your blood." "What does that mean?" he asked. "It means you were never just human," Serana said. "It means you were always meant to fight beside us." The hunters moved in, and the sky began to pulse again, this time with many ships. The battle was coming, and Ethan knew. This was just the beginning, asterisk. The night sky was filled with shadows. Dozens of alien ships hovered above the forest like silent predators. Their lights flickered like stars preparing for war. But below, in the quarry, Ethan stood between two worlds, one human, one alien, holding a weapon that wasn't a weapon a few minutes ago. Serana, the alien queen, looked at Ethan with eyes full of old secrets. Leo clung to her cloak, looking. Between his mother and the man who had saved him, "We can't stay here," Serana said quickly, her voice sharp and clear. "They've already sent scouts, but the real attack is moments away." Ethan nodded, still gripping the glowing bat. Now silver, humming, and warm in his hands. "Where do we go?" he asked. Serana looked up at the cliff wall behind the ship. "There's a hidden gate behind the rocks, one only my blood can open," she said. "Follow me, and keep your mind focused. They can smell fear." They climbed fast, dodging laser scans from above. Leo moved with amazing speed for a child, guiding Ethan through old stone paths that weren't made by humans. Serana moved like light, her long cloak never touching the ground for more than a second. When they reached the cliff wall, Serana touched a smooth piece of stone, symbols lit up, ancient, golden, and spinning like puzzle pieces. With a pulse, the wall split open, revealing a glowing passage. They stepped inside, and the rock sealed shut behind them, leaving the world in silence again. The inside was nothing like a cave. It was a tunnel of smooth crystal, lit by soft blue light. The air felt alive, like it remembered every footstep taken here. Ethan followed them deeper, his thoughts racing. "Why me?" he asked suddenly. "You say I'm not just human. What does that mean?" Serana stopped walking, turned, and faced him directly. Her voice softened, but her eyes were sharp. "Long ago, our worlds were not so far apart," she said. "Your planet and mine were once allies, connected by ancient gates, by trade, by peace. But something happened." Leo added quietly, "The gates closed, and people forgot." Ethan frowned. "Are you saying Earth was part of some alien empire?" Serana shook her head. "Not empire, alliance. But it was broken," she said, "because of betrayal from both sides. Our ancestors locked the knowledge away, and Earth forgot what it was." She walked up to Ethan. Slowly, "You were born from a line that still carries a spark of Illyrian blood," she said. "That's why the core recognized you. It woke up for you." Ethan took a step back, his mind spinning. "You're saying I'm part alien?" "Yes," Serana said calmly, "but more important than your blood is your heart." Leo smiled. "I told you she'd like you." Ethan laughed nervously, then looked around. "Where does this tunnel go?" "To a place under your world," Serana said. "A place older than Earth's cities, a place where truth still sleeps." They reached the end of the tunnel, a wide door shaped like a sun. When Serana touched it, the symbol on Ethan's bat glowed as well. The door opened slowly, revealing a vast underground chamber. Inside, the walls were covered in carvings, not words, but images, scenes of humans and aliens working together, fighting together, building together. In the center of the room was a large crystal, cracked and dim, but pulsing faintly. "This is the heart," Serana said, "the last piece of the Earth-Illyrian link." Ethan walked toward it, drawn by something he couldn't explain. As he touched the crystal, a jolt of light shot through the room. Images filled his mind, not dreams, but memories, but old ones. Soldiers standing together, humans in armor with stars on their chests, and in the center, a man with a weapon like Ethan's. Leading them, Ethan pulled back, breathing hard. "I saw someone like me," Serana nodded. "The last guardian," she said. "He gave his life to close the gates, so the war wouldn't reach Earth. And now?" Ethan asked. She looked up at the crystal. "Now the gates are opening again, not for peace, but for conquest." Ethan looked at Leo. then at the carvings. So what happens now? Serana. Step beside him, now. You must decide who you are. Before Ethan could respond, the chamber trembled, dust fell from the ceiling, and the carvings flickered with red light. They found us, Leo said, grabbing Ethan's hand. But we're not alone anymore. The crystal pulsed once more, brighter this time, as if it had just remembered how to shine. The underground chamber shook like it was breathing. Dust swirled in the blue light of the crystal. The walls flashed golden, then red, as if warning them. Ethan stood in front of the glowing crystal, still feeling the shock of what he had seen, visions of the past, of warriors like him, of gates once open and a galaxy united. But those days were gone, and now the choice was his. Serana placed a hand on his shoulder. They're coming for Earth, Ethan, she said. And Earth doesn't even know it. He looked up at her, confused and angry. Why didn't anyone tell us? He asked, why did you wait until now? Serana's eyes softened. We were waiting for the next guardian, she said. The core was silent. Until you touched it. Leo stepped forward, holding the cube again. It's not just you. He said, Earth has secrets. Deep ones. Even your people don't remember. Ethan turned to him. What kind of secrets? Leo pressed a button on the cube, and a new hologram appeared, this time not of Serana, but of Earth itself. Except it looked different. Parts of the planet glowed with hidden symbols, underground lines of energy. These are the Earth nodes. Leo explained. They're ancient. Older than your pyramids, older than your cities. They were used to protect Earth, and to keep the gates closed. Serana added, if they fall, the entire planet becomes open. Open to war, open to invasion, open to those who want to take everything. Ethan stared at the image, his world glowing from within. Why can't we warn people? Tell the governments? Leo shook his head. They won't listen. They'll panic, or worse. They'll try to use the alien tech for power. Serana walked to the edge of the chamber and touched one of the carvings. A hidden door opened, revealing a chamber full of ancient weapons, not guns, but energy blades, armor, floating spheres. They glowed the same color as the core. These were left for the Guardian and their chosen, she said. You don't have to fight alone. Ethan stepped inside the armory, looking at the tools. Of a forgotten war, everything in him screamed that this wasn't his life. He was just a guy from Pine Hill working night shifts, fixing broken signs, and feeding stray cats. But now the Earth was on the edge of invasion. And he had a weapon that responded to his hands, a child who believed in him, and a queen who looked at him like he was more than human. Suddenly, the walls trembled again, this time harder. A voice echoed through the chamber, deep and cruel. It wasn't in any language Ethan knew, but he understood it. Earth will burn unless the queen surrenders. Leo looked up, his face pale. They found the outer gate. He whispered, they're sending the herald. Serana's face hardened. There's no more time, she said. You must make Earth choose. Ethan gripped the bat, now fully transformed into a glowing silver staff. How? He asked, how do I make an entire planet choose? She smiled sadly. You show them, she said. You do what no guardian has done before. You go public. He stared at her in shock. You want me to tell the world aliens exist? Leo nodded. Not just aliens, he said. Tell them their history, their truth, and their future. Serana raised her hand, and the cube projected a path. A map showing an ancient satellite buried beneath a mountain. It can send a message to every screen on Earth, she said. Unfiltered, untouchable, Ethan took a deep breath. A gas station worker was about to send a message to 8 billion people and tell them their world was never just their own before they left. Serana handed him a pendant, shaped like the symbol carved on the bat. This will protect your mind, she said. They'll try to twist your thoughts, break your will, but this will keep you grounded. Leo smiled and said, you're gonna be awesome. As they stepped back into the tunnel, the chamber sealed itself behind them. The crystal dimmed once more, waiting for the next call outside. The Earth was waking up. Satellites blinked strangely. Birds flew in chaotic patterns. And above them, in orbit, a massive shadow appeared, shaped like a crown of knives. The herald had arrived, and Earth's choice was running out of time. The world didn't know it yet, but war had already touched Earth. Not with bombs, not with fire, but with silence, the kind that comes before everything breaks. Ethan stood at the peak of Mount Idrin, the ancient satellite chamber hidden beneath his boots. Serana and Leo stood behind him, watching as the sky darkened above them. Clouds circled unnaturally, and the stars disappeared. A massive object, larger than any Earth-made craft, blocked the moonlight. It wasn't just a ship, it was a warning. The herald had arrived, and it wasn't alone. "They're scanning global signals," Serana said, her voice calm but cold. "They know you're about to speak." Ethan looked at the ancient machine. In front of him, it was shaped like a stone flower, each petal made of metal older than Earth's mountains. The bat in his hand pulsed softly, and the central crystal responded to its light. "This thing will reach everyone?" he asked. Serana nodded. "Every screen, every phone, every satellite. It bypasses governments. It speaks to the people directly." Leo placed his hand over the activation panel. "Only a guardian can open the voice gate," he said. "But I can boost it." With the cube. As the cube floated into position, light filled the mountain. Ethan stepped forward. Heart pounding, he wasn't ready, but he knew no one else could do it. He spoke into the light, his voice calm but honest. "People of Earth, you don't know me. My name is Ethan Reed. I'm nobody special, not a soldier, not a scientist. But I found something. Or maybe it found me." He told them about the crash, the child, the queen. He told them Earth's forgotten history, the ancient gates, the alliance, the truth. He showed images from the cube, proof no one could deny. "Your world is not alone," he said, "and it's not safe anymore. There are things coming, and they don't want peace. But there's a choice. We can hide and lose everything, or we can remember who we were and fight for what we still have." As the message spread across the world, people stared at their screens in shock. Some laughed, some cried. Some believed instantly, some did not. But one thing was clear, no one could ignore it. The herald's ship responded. A booming voice echoed across the sky, not through speakers, but inside people's minds. "The Queen must surrender, or Earth will be cleansed." In cities around the world, ships appeared in the clouds, not attacking yet, but waiting, watching, reminding everyone the threat was real. Ethan turned to Serana. "They're pushing us to fear," he said. "Maybe it's time we push back." Serana raised her hand, and from the mountain, hidden Illyrian tech rose from beneath the ground. Sleek fighters, glowing shields, and teleport. Gates shimmered to life. "They left us tools," she said, "in case this day came." All across the world, people began to move. Scientists reopened hidden labs. Old soldiers returned to command posts. Engineers worked side by side with Serana's rebel crew. The Earth was waking up, not just to fear, but to fight. Leo stood at Ethan's side, wearing a small armored vest too big for his shoulders. "You look like a space turtle," Ethan joked. Leo grinned. Space turtles win wars. Suddenly, alarms rang across the mountain. A second wave of ships entered Earth's orbit, this time heading toward major cities. No more threats, no more waiting. Ethan took a breath and looked at the glowing staff. In his hand, it was no longer a bat. It was something alive responding to his thoughts. When he gripped it, it formed armor over his arms. Not heavy, but light, like wearing courage itself. Serana nodded at him. "Lead them," she said. "You're not a soldier, Ethan. But you're something more dangerous. You're a believer." The wind howled across the mountain as Earth's first defense teams powered up. Fighter jets with Illyrian cores launched from hidden bases. civilians around the world formed resistance networks. For the first time in generations, humanity wasn't divided. They were scared, but they were united. Ethan stood on the edge of the platform as the first enemy ship descended toward New York. He raised the staff, and it lit the sky like lightning. The war had begun, but Earth wasn't falling, not tonight. The sky above Earth was no longer blue. It had turned into a battlefield. Alien ships covered the clouds like a swarm. Lasers cut through the air, and the ground shook from explosions across cities and forests. But Earth wasn't silent. For the first time in thousands of years, humans and aliens fought side by side again. Ethan stood at the front of the resistance, his silver armor glowing with the core's light. The staff in his hand had changed into something beautiful, a weapon shaped by his heart, not by war. It pulsed with energy that answered only to him. Beside him, Serana wore a crown of light, not a symbol of royalty, but of legacy. She was no longer just a queen. She was a warrior, a mother, and a leader who had waited years for this day. And Leo, small but fierce, had taken control of the cube, using it to guide Earth's forces through space and code. "Don't be afraid," he told Ethan, smiling. "You're doing great." For someone who used to sell gas and snacks, Ethan laughed despite the chaos. He couldn't believe how far he had come, from lonely nights at a gas station to fighting for an entire planet. But the fight was not over. The Herald's main ship descended slowly from orbit, shaped like a dark star. It opened its lower gate and revealed something unexpected, a massive being made of black armor and smoke. "The Herald itself. You are not a guardian," the Herald said, its voice spreading across the world like a cold wind. "You are a mistake." Ethan stepped forward, alone. "I may be a mistake," he said, "but I'm still standing, and this world, it's not yours to burn." The Herald raised a hand, and the sky darkened again. Energy beams charged on the corners of its ship, weapons strong enough to erase cities in seconds. Serana ran to Ethan. "We can stop it," she said, "but you have to choose." "Choose what?" he asked. She looked at the core embedded in his chest plate, a living fragment of the ancient force that once protected both their worlds. "If you give it all your energy," she said, "you can destroy the Herald's ship, but you won't survive it." Ethan froze. He looked around. Cities burning, people fighting, ships falling, children hiding, and then he looked at Leo. The child's eyes were wide, full of trust and hope. "There must be another way," Ethan said, but the core pulsed. It knew the truth. Sometimes saving the world meant letting go of your own. Then something happened. The cube lit up in Leo's hands, brighter than ever before. A second crystal formed beside it, floating, glowing, reaching for Ethan. "What is that?" he asked. "It's you," Leo said, smiling with tears in his eyes. "I made it for you. It's my half of the core. You don't have to die. If we fight together." Serana stepped forward, placing her hand on both crystals. A wave of light exploded from the mountain, covering the sky like a shield. The Herald screamed. Retreating for the first time, Earth's defenses fired all at once: ships, energy cannons, and core weapons built in secret. The Herald's ship cracked like glass, then shattered into the stars. And just like that, the silence returned. The war was over. Ethan collapsed to his knees, exhausted but alive. The core inside him dimmed, but didn't fade. Leo ran to him and hugged him tightly. "You did it," he whispered. "No," Ethan replied, smiling. "We did it." For weeks after, Earth began to rebuild, but it wasn't the same Earth anymore. Now people knew the truth. Now they knew the stars were watching, and some of them were friends. Ethan stood on a rooftop one evening, staring at the horizon. Serana joined him, dressed not as a queen, but in Earth clothes, simple, peaceful, human. "The gates are open again," she said softly. "We can rebuild the alliance. But I'll need help." Ethan looked at her, smiled, then teased. "You asking me to be your secretary?" She laughed gently. "No," she said. I'm asking if you'll stay by my side. As more than an ally, before Ethan could answer, Leo appeared beside them, holding a small ring in his hand. I made it from star metal, he said, grinning. It's tradition in our culture. Children offer it when they find someone worthy of their parent. Ethan stared, speechless. Serana blushed. For the first time, Leo held it up. So, will you marry my mom now? Ethan laughed, tears in his eyes. He looked at Serana, at Leo, at the stars above. Then he nodded. Yeah, he said. I think I'd like that. And somewhere, deep in space, the last piece of the core pulsed again. Because the galaxy wasn't ending, it was just beginning.